I'm joined by National Conference Vice President Omar Abdullah. Omar, congratulations first of all for this spectacular victory. You won from two segments. What is the road ahead? Is it difficult or is it easy?
Well, no government has an easy job. In Jammu and Kashmir, less so. In this case, our problems are multiplied by the fact that this is the first time we have elected a government to a union territory. We have no experience with this kind of government. So it's going to be a learning curve, and it's going to be a steep learning curve. But we'll do our best.
Omar, you also said that the first business in the House would probably be bringing about a resolution for statehood and then taking it to the centre. Can you explain?
No, I talked about a resolution by the cabinet because legislative agenda will be determined closer to a legislative session. But I would believe that clearly the first and overwhelming priority of this government would be to press for restoration of statehood, because on that there is no division. There is no political party that opposes a return of statehood to Jammu and Kashmir. And therefore, once the government is in place, at the first cabinet meeting, they should pass a resolution asking for statehood to be returned to Jammu and Kashmir, and then the Chief Minister should travel to Delhi, meet the Honourable Prime Minister, Home Minister and others, and ask that statehood be returned to Jammu and Kashmir.
What happens to Article 370? You said that it's a struggle that will continue. Can you tell us how will it continue now? Of course, it will be step by step.
It continues by questions like this. When you ask me a question and I answer it, it keeps the issue alive. And that is what we do. We keep the issue alive. We don't fool people. Nowhere have we said that we're going to get 370 back from this current government. We know we're not. The people that took it away from us are not going to give it back to us. But we have an obligation, it's part of our political ideology, to keep the issue alive, and we'll do that.
What's up? Also, I was just wondering that you got a sizable chunk of seats from Jammu, which went to the BJP, and a lot of seats in the Kashmir Valley, which went to the National Conference. How is the state going to run together, Jammu and Kashmir? There seems to be a clear division here.
Look, these divisions are not new. In the past, when you pretty much had a two-party system in Jammu and Kashmir, this split used to be visible. National Conference would win the valley, National Conference would win seats from the mountains of Jammu, and Congress would win Jammu. And it was almost a clear-cut division. But Jammu and Kashmir survived. The governments represented the people of Jammu. I have said in numerous interviews, and I'll repeat it, the incoming government is not a government of the National Conference and the Congress. It is a government of the people of Jammu and Kashmir. It is as much a government of the people who voted for us as it is for the people who didn't vote for us. Now, if I was to assume that the people of Jammu would be sort of ignored because they didn't vote for us, that would also then lead me to assume that the people of Srinagar would be ignored because 70% of them didn't vote, only 30% did. But clearly that's not the case. I don't believe that the people of Jammu should be punished because they didn't vote for us any more than the people of Srinagar should be punished because they didn't come out to vote. And therefore, the incoming government will do everything possible to give a sense of ownership to the people of Jammu, will work to remove and alleviate their problems, and will give them as much representation as possible. Anyway, the number of ministers is going to be very limited. We have a legal provision which limits how many ministers we can make. Now we don't have an upper house, so that brings down the number of ministers that are available to us. So even assuming we had 30 MLAs from Jammu, we still would be sort of limited to how many ministers we could make. Jammu will get its voice.
National Conference got the major share, but about the Congress, do you think it's time for Congress party also to introspect? They could have done better.
It's not for me to advise the Congress, but I'm sure, knowing them as I do, they must be looking at what happened, both in Jammu and Kashmir, but perhaps more than Jammu and Kashmir, at what happened in Haryana.
Right. I wanted to ask about
that. I think there are lessons to be learnt for many people, for the journalists who travelled there and gave their views, to the pollsters who produced these exit polls but were totally wrong, and obviously to the political parties that misread the mood. I know it's not easy to face a defeat, but sometimes if you work hard enough, defeat can be converted into victory, and I'm a living example of that.
Right. And Prime Minister Modi has congratulated National Conference and you. What do you have to tell Prime Minister Modi?
No, I'm extremely grateful for his message of congratulations. I thanked him via the medium of Twitter, which is where I first saw his message of congratulations. And I hope that the incoming government of Jammu and Kashmir will be able to sort of create a conducive atmosphere where we can work together in the spirit of federalism to take Jammu and Kashmir forward. I don't believe either the interests of J&K or the interests of the country will be served by a hostile relationship between the two governments. And hopefully this sentiment will be reciprocated.
And 5 nominated seats by the Lieutenant Governor?
They won't make a difference to the government. They will make no difference at all in terms of the majority, because they'll take 5 nominated, we'll then make sure we get 5 independents. But what it will do is it will start this relationship off on a sour note. I can understand the BJP being desperate to do this if it could bring them to a majority. But even with this 5, they don't come close to a majority. So why do it? And also, though these nominations are for people who are otherwise disenfranchised, they are sort of marginalized. Don't they deserve to have a voice in government? Why are you nominating them to sit in the opposition? See, that's why you nominate members. You nominate members to the ruling benches so that they are a part of the government and they benefit from that. Here you are going to be nominating people to the opposition. Right. How does that benefit them? Let them be nominated to the government, right, so that their voice is better heard.
Right. And there are lots of forces, political parties which came up before the election. Engineer Rashid, people were pitted out against you in one of the seats in Gandarbal. There were so many forces and parties that came up and they seem to have been wiped out. What do you have to say about this?
I think that's purely down to the sensible way in which people voted. The voters of Jammu and Kashmir, particularly of Kashmir and the mountains of Jammu, deserve a lot of credit for the way in which they ensured that their votes were not divided, that their voices were not muffled, and that they are now sort of in a position to have a government that will work for them.
And lastly, Dr. Saab has hinted at you becoming the next Chief Minister.
Well, as President of the party, he has every right to make that proposal. But at the end of the day, it has to be ratified by the Legislative Party. That meeting has been called tomorrow. Dr. Saab will make whatever proposal he has to make there.
The personally, you are open to this idea?
Look, I mean, whatever the party decides, I have been Chief Minister of a state. It's going to be different and difficult being the Chief Minister of a union territory. But then again, I make the point that as far as I'm concerned, this is a very temporary phase. And we have to work to pull Jammu and Kashmir out of this mess.
How do you see the relationship between Jammu and Kashmir and the centre now?
Well, I think it's one that requires to be cordial. I think it's one that requires us to work together. I'm drawing a distinction between the relationship between the National Conference and the BJP, or the India bloc and the BJP, because we'll continue to oppose each other, and rightly so. We should. They don't agree with my politics, I don't agree with theirs. But there's no reason why the government of Jammu and Kashmir should have a hostile relationship with the government of India. Right. And so, if we can ensure that this line is not blurred, I think that's a good thing.
Thanks so much. That is Omar Abdullah sharing his thoughts with us and talking about a whole range of issues in Srinagar. Zafar Iqbal for Mojo Story.